Hi, and welcome to day 3 of the LinkedIn Fitness Plan. Today I'm going to show you how to create content and different types of content you can create as posts or articles on LinkedIn. So let's hop over onto LinkedIn and let's get started. Right, so when you log on to LinkedIn, one of the first things that you'll see in the middle of the screen is the start a post option. You've got a whole box here around starting a post or writing an article on LinkedIn. So if you've not already done one of these before, they're very simple to do. To write a post, you can simply click on the start a post button, and then you have the option of writing a new post about whatever you like. So the text goes simply in the box there. You've got the options down the bottom here to attach photos, to upload a video, or to upload a PDF document as well, if you wanted to share one of those within your post. Best practice as well is to include some hashtags at the bottom. So down the bottom here, LinkedIn is actually suggesting hashtags to me based on ones I've used in the past on other posts, but there's nothing to stop you writing in whichever hashtags you think are appropriate to your post. And as you'll see here, LinkedIn actually does like an auto suggest of other hashtags that it thinks might be relevant based on what you start typing. So that's really the simple way to write a post. Once you've written it, you hit post, and therefore it will appear both in your feed and in the feed for people within your network as well. It won't necessarily be seen by everybody. It's unlikely to be seen by everybody, but the people within your network are the main ones that are going to be seeing your post. Just close that one down and discard that. The other type of content that you can create here is an article, and it looks slightly different when you go to create an article. So we'll click on write an article on LinkedIn, and it actually brings up a new window because the article section within LinkedIn is kind of like a sort of semi-separate blogging platform within LinkedIn, and you've got options here to upload a photo at the top. But beyond that, you simply start typing whatever you want to cover your article on. So you can write the article headline here, and then start writing the main body of the content as well. Now, one of the things I mentioned in today's email, so if you haven't already had a read of today's email, do that once you finish watching the video, is that the LinkedIn article section is a really good way to actually reuse content you already created. So if you've got a blog on your website with a series of blog posts on it, then it's perfectly acceptable to take one or more than one of those blogs and to upload them onto LinkedIn, to copy and paste them here, to share them onto LinkedIn so they can be seen by more people as well. It's one of the great ways of being able to repurpose your content and to ensure that more people get to see it. So you'll see a couple of examples of articles like this later on, but that's essentially what you do to create one. You've got some formatting options at the top here, and it's automatically saving there in the background. When you are finished with your article and you want to publish it, then you just hit the blue publish button at the top there. So that's how you go about either starting a post or writing an article. But what are some of the types of posts and the types of content you can actually create and share on LinkedIn? Well, what I'm going to do is to take you through some of the recent posts, some of the recent content that I've created and shared on LinkedIn to show you some examples of what you can do. This is by no means complete, and this just happens to be some of the recent content that I've created myself. So on the left-hand side of the main screen here, you've got under your little profile stamp, you've got options to who viewed your profile and views of your post. So if you click on views of your post, you come up with a feed here that lists in reverse chronological order all of the content that you've created and you've shared on LinkedIn. You can filter it by all sorts of activity, whether you put comments on whether you want to look at your articles, your posts, or your documents. For now, we're just going to just focus on the post side. So if I scroll down, you'll see that one of the recent pieces of content I shared was a testimonial. So this was from one of my clients. So they wrote a testimonial actually for me on LinkedIn. What I did was create a little image of that in Canva and then post that onto LinkedIn. I'm not going to touch on the numbers today. You'll see under each of the pieces of content there's a number of views around that. We're going to come on to that later on in the week in terms of how you use that information. So let's have a look at another post here. So this was another post that I did, which was highlighting a new feature on LinkedIn. LinkedIn now has a feature where it will suggest comments to you when you're reading a post. It's kind of like LinkedIn trying to be a bit of a mind reader here and suggest comments to you that you might want to type in, or it could automatically put in for you. So that was a post I did, really just trying to promote a bit of discussion and to see whether people thought it was a good idea or not a good idea. The people that commented generally thought it wasn't a good idea. But sometimes posts like that where you're not looking for anything other than some engagement and some discussion can be really powerful ways to actually get your voice heard, but also get other people's voice heard as well on LinkedIn. So let's move down a bit further. So another post here, this one I've got some text and I've got an image to go with it as well. Now this piece of content is a good example of a number of different things. Firstly, what you'll notice here is that the length of the text is actually longer than you can just read in these first couple of lines, and therefore you've got this sort of see more link here. You can't read anymore unless you actually click on that. So when you're writing a post in LinkedIn, it's a good idea to try and make sure that you write more than 3 lines of text, because if you do that, then it'll actually promote this button here to see more, which is actually encouraging people to read it. So what I tried to do with this article was tell a bit of a story, to use an analogy here, all about the idea of editing and the idea that your first idea is really the best, the principle that your first idea is really the best. And I used an analogy from Star Wars about the original name for the Star Wars film. So effectively what I've written here is a mini blog post. And I've spaced it out just to make it a little bit easier for people to read. And I've used a couple of emoticons as bullet points here. But it just tells a very short story about the history of Star Wars and the name of Star Wars, but with a message that relates to my business of copywriting and what I do of writing and editing. And I finished it up with some hashtags as well. So hashtags, #RobWrites is one that I use to kind of essentially tag the posts that I write on LinkedIn. So if anybody wanted to see more of my posts, they could just click on that hashtag and they'd get back all the posts I've written. But I've also used other hashtags here like editing, copywriting. So people that are interested in those topics, if they were searching for those hashtags or if they followed those hashtags, then they'll be able to discover my post as well. So that's one of the beauties of using content, is it helps expand your reach out beyond the people you're connected to. If you include hashtags on your content, then other people who aren't even in your network can come across your content and ultimately can come across you. So the more content that you create and share on LinkedIn, the more people you'll see who aren't in your network, not only reading your content, but commenting on it and possibly connecting with you on the back of it as well. So that's an ideal way to actually grow your network online, is by using content. We're just going to look through a few more examples now. Here's an example of a promotional post that I did. So in the email, in today's email, I talk about how you can use promotional posts, but you need to get the balance right, because too many promotional posts becomes quite boring. So whenever I do a promotional post, I try and make sure that I've got other informational or discussion-based posts around it to try and balance it out. So this was a promotional post that I wrote about a speaking event that I had, a networking meeting. So I was promoting it to try and get more people along to the meeting. Scrolling down a bit further now, this is another example of a sort of a mini blog post I wrote about something called the curse of knowledge. And you'll see with this one, I didn't actually use a photo at all or an image. It's purely just a piece of text. But again, it's because the text is longer than about half a dozen lines. You got a little see more button here, which if you click on, you then see the rest of the post, which people can read through, again with some hashtags at the bottom. Now the last piece of content I'm going to show you here is this one. Now it looks like some of the posts you've seen earlier on, but actually this isn't a post. This is actually an article. So we talked earlier on about how you can write an article, how you can reuse your existing blog content by sharing it on LinkedIn's platform as well. Well, that's what I've done here. I've created an article, and there's two things we can do. We can either click on the see more button, or I can just click on the picture itself, and what it will do is it'll actually take us into the article. So here we go, we're now in the article that I wrote. So you've got a large banner photo at the top here. You've got the headline about what makes case studies so effective in marketing, and then the main article that I wrote below that. So if you write an article, you won't get to see all of it within the news feed. You'll just see essentially the headline of it, but with a link through to the main article itself. So those are a few different examples of content that you can create on LinkedIn, different types of content that you can create, different types of content that you can share. But when you do start to create more content on LinkedIn, not only does it help to build your reputation, but it also helps you to get discovered by more people outside of your immediate network. So that brings us to the end of today's video. If you haven't already had a read through today's email, then please go and have a read through that. Tomorrow you're going to be finding out more in the LinkedIn Fitness Plan, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.